I now give the floor to the distinguished representative of India.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. We thank you for convening this important debate. You have the support of my delegation for a successful 75th session of the General Assembly. India aligns itself with the statements of St. Vincent and the Grenadines on behalf of the L69 and of Brazil for the G4. We also endorse the statements of Sierra Leone for the African Group and of Barbados for the CARICOM. We welcome the early appointment of the IGN co-chairs and offer our felicitations to Ambassador Wawrinka, Permanent Representative of Poland, and Ambassador Al-Thani, Permanent Representative of Qatar. Mr. President, today's Security Council is an impaired organ. It has been unable to act with credibility, essentially due to its unrepresentative nature. But then, what is happening inside the IGN process, which we seem to be wedded to? Inside the IGN, nothing has moved for more than a decade, except hearing passionate statements on the need for reform. In fact, it has not progressed since it is not only informal, but it has no rules of procedure and has no records. For a decade, it has remained that way. We are forced to keep our own notes, placing a tremendous burden on all small and medium states. The same countries who shed crocodile tears for small and medium states are the same ones denying them even the basic courtesy, which is to help them keep official record of discussions. What happens here is no record, and we start again the next year as if nothing has happened. And of course, we don't even have a single negotiating text. IGN has become like a platform for debate in a university rather than a serious result-oriented process in the United Nations consisting of sovereign member states. And why have we come to this pass? That's because just a handful of countries don't want us to proceed. They have stopped the IGN from progressing. They are using the IGN as a smokescreen to stop themselves from being identified by paying lip service to Security Council reform. The conditions they are laying out are impossible to fulfill, which is full consensus of all member states. Ironically, this is happening at a time when we are in a tearing hurry last week to give ourselves e-voting rights. But for the IGN, they want no voting, leave alone e-voting, but only full consensus. In fact, we are even apprehensive of using the words adopted unanimously by our own leaders in the UN at 75 high-level political declaration. There is no mention of the words instill new life in the discussions on the reform of the UN Security Council in the letter of the PGA, which gives the mandate to the co-facilitators. I do hope that we have not started distancing ourselves from the UN at 75 declaration even before the ink is dry. Talking about leaders, during the general debate, you have heard the chorus of world leaders calling for urgent reform of the multilateral decision-making structures, especially the Security Council. Prime Minister Modi, echoing the aspirations over 1 billion of my fellow citizens, asked, when will this reform process ever reach its logical conclusion? The question we are still asking here in IGN today is, when will the reform process ever begin? So what should constitute progress by the time 75th session ends? Firstly, we want the application of the General Assembly rules of procedure to the IGN to bring about an open, inclusive, and transparent process. Secondly, we call for text-based negotiations to start. A text reflecting all positions and proposals from member states will be necessary to make progress. Thirdly, let us reaffirm our firm support for the common African position as specified in the Esselwini Consensus and Sirte Declaration. In the last summit of the non-aligned movement, 120 NAM leaders for the first time added their voice of support to the common African position. Let us not sidetrack this discussion by asking for greater representation only for Africa, but we need to ask for greater representation for all those who deserve to be in the Security Council, including Africa, Latin America, and others. For this, we need a serious and credible process. On the issue of substance, while India's position is well known, let me repeat here for the sake of record. We believe that the vast majority of member states are, like us, in favor of expansion in both permanent and non-permanent categories of membership of the Security Council. Mr. President, I do not wish to waste the time of this assembly by responding to the irrelevant and irresponsible remarks made by the representative of Pakistan, which has become Pavlovian whenever India is mentioned. This is a forum for serious debate and not frivolous allegations. We need decisive movement this year, Mr. President. Without decisive movement, I feel that those who support real reform and who wish to deliver on the commitment made by our leaders will be forced to look beyond the IGN, maybe to this very assembly, for results. If that happens, we must not hesitate in taking a relook at the IGN process itself. I'm confident that you, as President of the General Assembly, will make sure that the IGN process produces results. The last IGN session was cut short unexpectedly due to the onset of the COVID pandemic, though other UN bodies and processes did manage to adapt to the changed scenario and to continue their deliberations using innovative format. We hope that in this session, the excuse of the pandemic is not used to stall the IGN again by insisting on in-person meetings only. Mr. President, India will continue to work with all countries which believe in genuine progress for UN Security Council reform. Thank you.
I thank the distinguished representative of India.